This is the StoryTrust Media Podcast.
How important is audio quality in content? This is the StoryTrust Media Podcast. I'm Jon Goehring. Okay, you know what I'm going to say. I don't just have this big, fancy, expensive microphone in view here by accident. I'm not talking into this thing because I had $500 laying around to purchase it or needed a tax write-off. No, I believe that audio quality is very important. And likely, if you're clicking on this and you're invested in the content that I've produced, you likely think so too. And here's the bottom line about that. The scholars, the experts, they agree too. In fact, there was a recent study done, and 69% of people in this focus group considered audio quality to be an extremely important consideration as far as trustworthiness was concerned. They were exposed to varying degrees of audio quality in content that they consumed. And what was found was that the higher the audio quality, the better. What was also found is that adequate audio quality was good, and the difference between adequate and superior audio quality was less than the difference between poor and adequate. So the bottom line being, it's important to have good enough audio quality. It may not be important to have the most expensive mic. And that makes sense because podcasting is mostly about content and not so much about having the most expensive condenser microphone. If you're a mic nerd like me, you know what that means, and probably don't need that. But this is a key consideration. So many podcasts I hear have awful audio. And if that's the case, you are eroding your audience's trust. And there's very clear research done on that. Your audience is making some split-second decisions that they don't even realize they're making. They're deciding whether to trust you based on just momentary impulses. And this is what we do. You ever meet somebody and you think right away somebody's just off? They're just not really right. There's something wrong. You don't feel good about a certain scenario. You can't necessarily put your finger on it. Sometimes that's audio quality. Now, sometimes people are very aware why they don't trust someone or trust someone's content. And oftentimes they know that I can't hear them very well. Their audio's not good. Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes people listen to a podcast episode and they go, I don't trust that person. It depends, but either way, it's not a good result for the podcaster, for the content creator. One of the simplest things that you can do to up your content game is improve your audio quality. Here's a couple tips to do that. Do you need an expensive microphone? Not necessarily. Do you need some sort of microphone? Maybe. Here's one way that you can really step things up is your positioning. All right. Sometimes content creators, they think that if I have some sort of microphone and I put it somewhere in the room, no matter what, I could just sit back and it'll sound great. I can talk from over here and it'll sound great. And I can kiss the thing and it'll sound great. It's just not the case. Your positioning, as you could hopefully tell from that example, means more than how expensive your microphone is. So make a fist. Put your fist up against the microphone, and the one side of your fist should touch the mic. The other side of the fist should touch your mouth. That's about as far away as you should be from the microphone. A few inches, maybe 3 to 5 inches away. If you have an internal microphone, that could work too, but make sure you're talking at it. Say if it's a computer monitor, make sure you're talking at it. Those Macs have really good mics, but not if you're looking at the ceiling or at the floor. Not that makes good content anyway. The number 2 important consideration is the room that you're in. Rooms with high ceilings. If you got one of those nice, old, beautiful homes that have really high ceilings, I'm sorry, but that's killing your audio. Rooms that have, whatever it may be, hard surfaced walls. I'm not very good at understanding all the different types of walls and stuff. But if you don't have padding or carpeting on your wall, or you're not in a closet, that sound is just going to bounce all over the place and create some really poor audio. So invest in some simple sound panels like I have behind me. Record in a closet or in a smaller room. Record in a room where the ceiling isn't 20 feet high. Ideally, the ceiling's only 7 or 8 feet high. These are all important considerations when you're recording audio. And this is one of the quickest, easiest fixes for your podcast, because too often people will tune out too fast when they hear poor audio quality. And so much research has been done. In fact, there was a study before the recent study that I mentioned where 69% of participants said that the audio quality had a significant impact on their listening experience and how much they trusted the content creator. There have been studies before that show exactly how important audio quality is on meetings too, not just in content, but in sales conversations, in virtual meetings. How people actually close more sales, win more business when they sound good on their audio. There was another research done about live events and the importance of solid audio at live speeches and talks and conferences. And again, it proved true that people retain more information. They trust a speaker more when they sound good, even if the audio at that conference or event was completely out of that speaker's control. They will trust that speaker more if they sounded good. Content the same across these different experiments. So it's the research just shows time and time again how important it is to have good audio. So if your audio is maybe lacking, mediocre, you think it's mediocre, but your audience is actually thinking it's bad, that's when it's time to step your audio game up. Maybe it takes a little investment. Maybe it just takes a positioning change, whether that be a smaller room, a lower ceiling, being closer or even further away from the mic in some circumstances. Audio is so important. Now, here's why audio is also important, because we think we might record something and then listen back to our podcast and think, oh, that sounded good enough. We're listening back to it on our computer's external speakers at a decent volume, and we think that sounds fine, good to go. But you got to remember how people are listening to your show, how people are taking in your content. A lot of podcasts are listened to in very intimate settings, like a car, for example. Now, if you're anything like me, you turn up the volume pretty loud in the car because you got a lot of noise going around you and everything. And that makes it really important for you to come through loud and clear without hopefully any background noise or any other distractions in your audio. What's even more intimate than a car setting would be in earbuds. How important is it for you to sound good when you're literally in someone's ear? They're absolutely essential. So I would recommend, if you're not sure about your audio, you think maybe it sounds okay. I've always thought it sounded okay, but I'm just not quite sure. Now John's telling me how important this is for trust, and I don't want to be losing any trust because of poor audio quality. Turn up your volume on your phone, connect it to a Bluetooth headphone, and put 2 headphones in and listen to yourself. Close your eyes and listen to yourself. Does that person sound knowledgeable? Does that audio sound like it was recorded in a professional studio? Or at least, does it sound like it was recorded by or with a professional? If it doesn't, you could be eroding trust. Now, again, there's different tiers to this. There's different levels to this. Your audio doesn't have to be necessarily the most pristine, perfect, cinema-ready audio, but it's got to be free of distractions. It's got to sound like it was recorded on a real microphone in a real studio. And the good news is it's getting easier and easier to make that possible. So think about your audio quality. If you want me to just take a listen to it, shoot me a message on LinkedIn, a DM, or shoot me an email, john@jonathangoehring.com. I'd be happy to take a listen to it and let you know my honest thoughts, as long as you're ready for my honest thoughts. And then once that audio quality is dialed in, man, then it's time to focus on your content game, to focus on stepping up your content game. You know that you have an opportunity to build trust with your audience with solid audio quality. And then everything from there, the next steps will follow. And those are other episodes here you can check out on the StoryTrust Media podcast. So thanks for checking us out today, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for checking out the StoryTrust Media Podcast. Learn more and get in touch with Jon at StoryTrust.media.